Yes.
And specifically, one recurring role in La Boheme that seems to...
good grief.
I don't know if it's a curse at this point or...
No, she's been a very good friend.
Mm-hmm.
One of the early ones that I've kept with me a very long and very, on my part, very grateful time.
Mm-hmm.
It's been a good role for me, and I do sing her less these days, but with great joy, especially at the Met, because they always fix me up with my special Mimi, Miss Franny, and usually a cast of wonderful supports. And
Now, you've sung Mimi, haven't you?
I have, and I do occasionally. I make a less convincing, physically convincing Mimi than I do Musetta.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Well, you've got a little bit of everything for us in the next portion of the program. Something, something old, something from
new,
the 20th
something
century.
borrowed, and something, yes.
Well, I don't know about the blue part, but...
No, there's sort of a blue mood on here. I mean, the Pagliacci's sort of an up tune, although it's in a rather abused and depressed sort of an atmosphere. Pagliacci, we've been running that at the Met for the last month almost now, closing out. This is the last performance for me on the 10th.
Mm-hmm.
And the Consul is heavy stuff. Powerful stuff.
Giancarlo Menotti.
Yep.
And we definitely want to talk a little bit about that. You'll be singing that in a couple of minutes. Why don't we get right to some music, though?
Great.
With you want to do Nedda's aria?
Would like to.
From Leoncavallo's Pagliacci?
Yes.
All right.
Okay.
Barbara Daniels is the soprano. Stephen Sulich at the piano. And let's hear a live performance of Nedda's aria on this edition of WNYC's Around New York. That's soprano Barbara Daniels and pianist Stephen Sulich performing live here in the studio on this edition of Around New York, and that's Nedda's aria from Pagliacci by Leoncavallo, I Pagliacci. You don't get the chance to do that sort of big sigh of relief when you're out on stage.
No, but you should know that I don't do much of this kind of stuff at all.
Yeah.
And the smallest room I think you usually launch something that in might be a teacher's studio.
Yeah.
And it's usually not acousticalized the way this room is.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, you've been friendly and given it a little bit of.
It's not a friendly room. We've done what we can with it.
But, you'd probably, any opera singer would tell you that probably,
Yeah.
or any singer at all.
Yeah, absolutely. And
Takes some getting used to.
yeah. I was going to ask you, actually, if you do any of, a lot of sort of recital type things, if your schedule allows you, if you have the desire to.
I must say, I've been very, very busy since the very beginning singing opera.
Mm-hmm.
And to incorporate recital into a full year of either learning new operatic repertoire, which is the hardest, getting it into your voice, and then performing the ones that you either do know or are just doing maybe for the first couple of times. That takes a whole year. I mean, there are people who can manage other things, but up until this point, I've sort of had enough keeping me busy that recitals have been very, very difficult because the literature is so different and the demands are so different.
Yeah. Now, did I hear you saying during our sound check that you're living in Austria these days?
Since I went to Europe, which was actually my real professional beginnings. I was a student for years, it seems. Was working even on a doctorate at one point at Cincinnati Conservatory College of Music, and knew that I wanted to perform. But I think it was just a matter of at which point I decided to cut myself loose from the big machine and go do it. And it was not a real studied consideration to pass over New York, but I had been in Europe and studied at one point, and nothing lengthy, nothing complicated, but sort of fell in love with the lifestyle there and decided that it might be a good place to begin. The theaters are smaller. I could experiment a lot and not be under the eye of the all-seeing
New York
eyes.
media.
Well, it's tough.
Yeah.
It is tough. I'll admit it. It wasn't the chicken's way out, but it was an ongoing learning process for me. And I met and married my husband of 17 years. I've lived over there for about going on 20 now.
Wow.
My daughter was born over there. She just turned 11. I remain an American citizen.
Right, and
she
you
has
maintain
double passports, and we live right outside of Innsbruck, up in the mountains. It's a nice switch from New York to come back there, and sort of balances out the frenetic area of your traveling life.
I didn't realize today we had an all-Austrian emigre program or immigrant program. Andra Schiff is coming in later on, who's now living near Salzburg.
Great.
So obviously, though, you do maintain enough of a presence here that folks in New York know your name. I know you've played in Chicago, and isn't that where you and Stephen met?
Stephen and I had met professionally there. At any rate, we had never worked together as conductor and singer, but I was more than thrilled the day that he saved the show there. Maestro Bartolini had been conducting The Bartered Bride, and Stephen had been his assistant, and they literally called him back from a job in New York, and he flew back and did it, and it was very thrilling. So I was even more thrilled to have him be able to play for me today.
Okay. We want to hear the music of Giancarlo Menotti from the Consul. Now, how long have you been performing this? Is this something
I'll
new
tell
in
you,
your
I
repertoire?
probably never would have. I was seduced into doing this piece for an Austrian television show. I do not lots of, but I would say every 2 years there's a gala in which everything of American composers of the sort of semi-Broadway to modern American composer is presented in the way of singing. I mean, there's a man over there, and all of New York knows him. In fact, he had a farewell concert at Carnegie Hall about 1.5 years ago, Marcel Pravi, Dr. Marcel Pravi. He is a rabid fan of American musical theater. The Menotti does not fall into that classification, but this was a mixed bag of tricks, and he said, you have to learn this aria. I said, why? Why? This is a hard aria. He said, you'll never regret it. And I never have. It's a toughie, but I think in terms of the text, and I sang it, the last time I sang it was in Chicago for an AIDS benefit. The text is extremely relevant. to problems ongoing in the world, and especially now. Oppression, bureaucracy. How I said if they wanted to do a modern setting of this opera, which is Menotti's Consul, they could do it at the IRS, perhaps. I don't want to get the IRS down my throat, but you deal with so much paperwork. And it stands in your way for everything, be it medical research for AIDS, be it, your taxes, whatever. And it cuts deeper than that, the song. I mean, it all of this bureaucracy at one point or another has a bearing on human life and suffering as we see it happening around the world today. So it's a good piece, and I'm glad that I was forced to learn it.
And I guess if you're going to sing in your native language, it's good to have a substantial text as well as...
It's a good one. It's a very good one.
All right. It's called To This We've Come, and it's from Giancarlo Menotti's opera The Consul, and I should mention that Menotti did the text himself, as well as the music, of course. And let's hear it, sung live in the studio by soprano Barbara Daniels, Stephen Sulich at the piano on Around New York.
My own
Why don't you say something? Aren't you secretaries human beings like us? What is your name, Madame Sorel? Age, the degree. What will your papers do? They cannot stop the clock. They are too thin an armor against a bullet. What is your name, Madame Sorel? Age 33. What does that matter? All that matters is that the time is late, that I'm afraid that I need your help. What is your name? What is your name? What is your name? This is my answer. My name is woman. Age still young. Color of hair gray. Color of eyes the color of tears. Occupation waiting, 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 waiting.
Once again, we've heard a live performance by soprano Barbara Daniels with Stephen Sulich at our piano, and that is an aria from Giancarlo Menotti's opera The Consul, both text and music by Giancarlo Menotti. To This We've Come is the name of that aria. Barbara, have you sung the whole opera or just this part?
Never. Don't you think they should do it?
Yeah.
Aren't you curious to know what comes before and what comes after?
It seems almost Kafkaesque. You know, the consul is this kind of shadowy figure that even his own secretary doesn't
Well,
perhaps
darling,
know.
don't we have a lot of those around today? Once elected, we never see them again. Smoke and mirrors.
Well,
Moving
some of them
right along.
nowadays, some of them get on a bus and appear in your hometown, perhaps more often than you'd like.
The text is riveting, and I've
Yeah.
been told. I don't know the piece personally. I've never seen the entire work, but there are a great many fans of this piece. People who think it should be done again, others who think that perhaps, like many operatic works, that the aria is not enough to make the entire piece stand. But I can't imagine, especially today, with all that's going on around us, that the entire theme of the piece would not be interesting.
And this is kind of a standalone piece. I mean, other people have sung this on its own.
Oh, yeah. I remember the first time I ever heard it, and what made me decide that I'd never sing it, at least as a college student, was a recording by Eileen Farrell. And it's a grand thing. It can be delivered grandly, and I think the orchestration with which I've also delivered this piece is monumental. I mean, gorgeous.
Big orchestra?
Yes, big orchestra. Big piece.
Okay, need a big voice.
Well, we try. I mean, you know,
Yeah.
it's open to suggestions as to what type of a voice would really sing this on a big stage, especially a big American stage.
Yeah.
But it certainly is thrilling to get up under it with piano or with orchestra for the single sort of a situation. And it served me well. It's a great piece of literature.
Great. So what is your schedule like these days? Now, you mentioned that the Met ends on Wednesday. Is that
My
right?
last performance is on the 10th. I then leave town and go directly to Toronto. I'll be doing my first Tosca there. I'm very excited about it. I have a good cast. Michael Sylvester, who many Met goers will remember in the roles that he's sung here. I think Don Carlo was one of them. Tim Noble is the Scarpia, who is at the moment also involved in the Cavalleria Pagliacci, singing the Cavalleria. The conductor is Richard Armstrong, British conductor, and I'll be singing in Toronto for the first time. It's my debut there.
Great.
So it's a wild 3 months, 3 months away from home.
Great.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, maybe not great, but I mean, it's great that you get a
It's
chance
always
to-
sort of great.
Yeah.
It's pain and pleasure at the same time. It's always that way,
Yeah.
isn't it?
Yeah. All right. Now, just as a way of sort of ending this segment without leaving us, waiting for this Godot-like Consul to arrive or not, we've got something a little lighter. Much lighter, in fact.
Much lighter, but I'll tell you, these two things got smacked together in the same program anyway. When I did this last television stint in Europe for Marcel Pravi, he puts all of this stuff together and somehow makes it work. And this was part and parcel of an evening that included also Stephen Foster, the Consul, and Rodgers and Hammerstein.
It's nice not to have those sort of sometimes very artificial walls.
I think
put
that's what he
between-
finds fascinating about the American literature, that it is such a wide span and interests and thrills still so many people.
All right. Well,
Okay.
you going to round out with something from South Pacific?
Yes, I'm in love with a wonderful guy.
All right. Rodgers and Hammerstein. Barbara Daniels is the soprano, Stephen Sulich at the piano, and a final performance on this edition of Around New York.
I expect every one of my crowd to make fun of my proud protestations of faith in romance. And they'll say I'm naive as a babe to believe any fable I hear from a person in pants. Fearlessly I'll face them and argue their doubts away. Loudly I'll sing about flowers in spring. Flatly I'll stand on my little flat feet and say, love is a grand and a beautiful thing. I'm not ashamed to reveal that world-famous feeling I feel. I'm as corny as Kansas in August. I'm as normal as blueberry pie. No more a smart little girl with no heart. I have found me a wonderful guy. I am in a conventional dither with a conventional star in my sky. And if you'll note, there's a lump in my throat when I speak of that wonderful guy. I'm as trite and as gay as a daisy in May, a cliche coming true. I'm romantic and bright as a moon-happy night, pouring light on the dew. I'm as corny as Kansas in August, high as a flag on the 4th of July. If you'll excuse an expression I use, I'm in love, I'm in love, I'm in love, I'm in love, I'm in love with a wonderful guy. And this is the band. And here I would normally dance with the conductor. But because the conductor is playing, I can't dance with him. Oh, I'm as corny as Kansas in August, high as the flag on the 4th of July. If you'll excuse an expression I use, I'm in love, 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 I'm in love with a wonderful guy.
All right, we'll have to teach Stephen Sulich how to play the piano and dance simultaneously so you can get that to the way you like it. I'm in Love with a Wonderful Guy from South Pacific by Rodgers and Hammerstein, and that was Barbara Daniels, the soprano, and Stephen Sulich at the piano. And well, in the space of 20 minutes, we got to hear something from the heart of the Italian opera repertoire, something kind of substantial and new, or at least contemporary. Menotti is still alive, and a bit of American musical theater. That's a nice bit of programming.
Well, it'll keep people awake. It certainly kept me awake. But I think it's part and parcel of being an entertainer and even an opera singer these days. And God knows there are a lot of European artists who sing this stuff with such joy. Why shouldn't I?
Why
I'm
not?
an American.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, Barbara, best of luck in Toronto.
Thank you.
I'm sure you must be looking forward to it. I hear it's a beautiful city in addition to
Looking forward
everything
to
else.
every aspect.
Great.
Okay.
A real pleasure having you here. Stephen, thank you for being here as well.
Thank
real
you.
Pleasure. Stephen Sulich and Barbara Daniels at the piano.